Alright, Scrap fans, it's been a little while, but I am back with a bit more Scraft action from our novice tournament. So we're in the quarterfinals here. This is Firesrest, that's Chayton versus Luke, and of course that's Luke. So Firesrest are Terran player in the top right of World of Sleepers, and Luke as Protoss in the bottom left. I'm a bit weirded out by the production tab here because neither of them are that was weirdly empty for a minute there. I don't really know what that's about. Firesrest, not, you know, neither of them are supply blocked, but there's no workers being built. What's happening? Maybe in the interim, you know, there's been a bit of time off. It's been an assessment week. There's been a half term or whatever. Maybe everyone's forgotten how to play StarCraft, but you know, word to the wise, top tip to all. You don't stop building workers. It's as simple as that. Like my normal tip, certainly at this level, is you don't stop building workers until you've got 3 bases saturated. I mean, it's okay to continue after that 4 bases saturated. There's nothing wrong with that either. But in general, you know, we find most of our players struggle to spend their money. So certainly getting to the point where you've got 3 bases up and mining, then you can take your foot off the gas in terms of building workers. But you know, this early in the game, there should just always be workers in the production tab. Just always. Anyway, it is Luke that is going to get across the map. Oh my goodness, bit of a delayed reaction there, but weirdly, the probe seemed to stop before that depot had gone up. I don't know, maybe it was just rallied to this point at the top of the ramp, but anyway, the worker isn't going to get inside. If we have a look from the vision of Luke, he can see this engineering bay, and shortly he's going to see the Reaper come out. So, you know, that's arguably useful intel. The Reaper is probably going to come past this worker when it pops out, I would have thought. Oh, the Reaper actually is just staying where it is. So there is a Zealot at home for Luke. So if Chayton does send the Reaper across the map, you know, obviously Reapers are faster than Zealots, but at this level, honestly, just right-click the Zealot onto the Reaper and kind of forget about it. If your opponent wants to go nuts with their micro, a Reaper takes just such a long time to kill a Zealot that it will probably cost them more because, you know, I don't really expect people in this league to be microing and macroing simultaneously. So if they're that busy with the Reaper that they're microing after a Zealot, chances are they're probably not doing stuff at home, and you've probably got an advantage from that anyway. So Luke pulls the workers and is trying to get us around on this. What I would advise, I mean, by all means, pull. You know, you don't want to lose a bunch of stuff to a Reaper. Oh, that Reaper is low. What I would normally recommend is, you know, if you've got a Zealot, just have the Zealot chase in the Reaper. Make your opponent micro while you don't. That's the absolute key thing here. Reaper micro, like, you can keep a Reaper alive for ages if that's all you're focused on, but not very many people, until you get to sort of Masters League, are able to do that and actually macro effectively at home. So for the most part, what you want to do is get one of your Zealots chasing the Reaper. Try and keep your workers alive by all means. You know, so if the Reaper is trying to focus on a worker, pull that injured worker back. Maybe send a few workers at a time to chase the Reaper. If you don't have any Zealots, that's the way to do it. As the Reaper comes in, grab some, maybe 5 workers, A-click to a point here and shift-click back onto the minerals. Just chase that Reaper back. If they do get the surround, all well and good. If they don't, pull them back again, and, you know, as they're coming back, send another handful of workers across, so that Reaper never really gets its damage done, rather than sending all of your workers to chase a Reaper that they will ultimately never catch. But anyway, Look, I don't know, perhaps this is a misrally, or he's worried about Cloak Banshees or something, but he has got this Observer parked in the mineral line. We have seen Chayton use Cloak Banshees before, I think, so that's probably a reasonable thing to be worried about, but I'd still prefer the Observer on the other side of the map. You know, if you send the Observer across the map and you see that your opponent has got the starport with the tech lab attached, and it looks like Cloak Banshees, you know, in the time it takes for a Banshee to get across the map, you can chrono out another Observer. This is a pretty slow expo for Look, but it wasn't a blisteringly fast one for Firesrest either. So I don't really think there's a significant income advantage for either of our players. This Reaper just hanging out down here, and I like that. Leave the Reaper there for a while, send it back in a bit, have another look around once the tech path has been chosen. Look a little bit behind on tech. I mean, yeah, he's got the Robo and we've got an Immortal coming out, but there's not really much here. There's no Twilight, there's no Forge. So yeah, I'm a bit curious about that. You know, he doesn't have a great surplus of money. And actually the worker count, given that we're 5.5 minutes in, is pretty low for both players. But oh, okay, looks like there was a pause and continue there. But obviously Firesrest can, you know, one of the things that's important about getting that expo up earlier, it isn't just about the fact that you're mining off a second base, it's about your ability to build workers. You know, once you have 2 bases up, you're building workers 2 at a time. So every sort of minute that you have a second base and your opponent doesn't is a minute during which you're building workers 2 at a time and they're only building workers 1 at a time, which ultimately means that you have got more workers. So it's all about increasing that income. And of course, once you've got that faster income, the whole game is about turning that money, turning that gas into units. So handful of Marines is what we're seeing here. If I just throw the units tab up, you can see 12 Marines, 1 Marauder, 1 tank. So a substantially larger army on the map for Chaitin at present in terms of its output. I know that if you look at the bottom here, this can be a little bit misleading. The army supplies are even, but do bear in mind the supply includes what is in production. Things like Immortals are a bit heavy on the supply. So yeah, I think I like what I'm seeing from Chaitin in as much as the 3rd is down earlier, and this is all good. He's got these sensor towers set up, and they're not in terrible positions. This one is covering this path into the main. If anything tries to fly in up here, this is going to see it, and that's pretty good. This one is covering this access to the main, so anything tries to fly into that base, he is going to pick that up on those sensors, and I quite like that. Meanwhile, look, still with this parked here, you know, and I would much rather, as I said before, I'd much rather this observer was across the map, because really he doesn't have much of a clue about what his opponent's doing. He sees the sensor rings for sure, but you know, he doesn't know about this 3rd. He doesn't know what the tech choice is. He doesn't know that there are 2 factories here with Tech Labs, a 3rd factory, a 4th factory. You know, this is very much lining up to be mech, and he doesn't know anything about that. Now with that said, he's going to have some Void Rays up, so it depends on the choice of tech. You know, obviously it's going to be a mech army. If this is going to be Thors can do very well against Void Rays. Void Rays tend to clump up, and Thors do splash damage to units that are in the air. So Thors can trade very, very well. If on the other hand Chaitin decides to go tanks, then obviously tanks don't shoot up, and that's not so good. So again, there's an observer with the army, but I want it on the other side of the map. I want to see more scouting happening. I'm also still a bit concerned by Luke's lack of worker production. You know, he's still, there's only 45 workers on this map here, and you've got the ability to build them 2 at a time, so why wouldn't you? And the same can be said for Chaitin. I mean, yeah, there's 1 worker in production, but look, you know, we're almost 9 minutes in, and there's really, I mean, at 9 minutes in, at 9 minutes, if you try hard, you can be maxed out. You can hit 200 supply at 9 minutes and have sort of 70 or 80 workers mine in for you. And given that neither player has had to put up with any significant harass, I mean, yeah, there was a Reaper, but there's been nothing else slowing you down. Really, I'd like to see both of these players just be a bit more on it with building those workers and a bit more on it with getting these production buildings up and running. Look, these 2 are not on cooldown, they're simply idle. This is simply idle, and look how much money and gas there is. These 2 buildings are idle, there's just nothing in production. So far, you know, so far early in this quarterfinal, a little lackluster. Okay, now there is this is a very lit Cloak Banshee, and that, you know, weirdly, this could do more damage than you might expect, because you know, if I'm Luke, I'm thinking, right, the time has passed where a Cloak Banshee's going to come in and wreak havoc, so I can probably relax about that. Yeah, he's got this Observer in the main. There's nothing in the natural, and when it comes to actually shooting it, he's got these 2 Void Rays. If it's Speed Banshees, you know, so easy to dodge those. I also noticed there's no, like, what? I don't understand. Why is there nothing in production? Look, you've got the supply, you've got the money. Why aren't you building units? You don't need pylons. You're not going to shoot stuff with pylons. What is this? I don't know what the strategy here is. Meanwhile, you know, there's Thors in production for Chaitin, but it's not a dreamboat here either, is it? Look, there's 2 idle factories. There's a 3rd idle factory. There's 2 idle racks. What's the hold up here? You know, there's minerals in the bank. It just overwhelmingly, the key to this game is to build a big old army. You know, it's like sometimes it gives you that as a tip. It says the bigger army nearly always wins, and that is so true. Yeah, you can micro, and there's some units are quite micro intensive. For example, Templars can be a bit of a game changer if a Terran has gone marine heavy. Then a well micro Templar or 2 can really change the face of the game. But 9 times out of 10, it's the bigger army that wins in, certainly in open ground. So, you know, with that in mind, you've got to build a big old army. Now, there is a lot in production for Chaitin. With all of that said, the scan goes down in the center of the min, and well, does it actually see the Stargates? Doesn't see the Stargates. These ones are queued up to be built, but these 2, you know, were just outside of range. And this is just so questionable. I mean, yeah, you're going up to 6 Stargates, but the 2 that you've already got are building nothing. You know, so you're about to die. I can't help but feel that Chaitin just walks in here and is essentially uncontested, because Luke has just for such a long time built nothing. You know, idle. Only now a couple of Void Rays warming up. Well, a couple of Void Rays is not going to cut the mustard against this many Thors. Let's have a quick look at the upgrades. It's 1-1 for the bio. Interestingly, no upgrades for the mech, even though it was a strongly mech decision. But his opponent has no upgrades whatsoever. And look, these Void Rays are going to melt pretty fast. The Zealots are going to take an absolute beating enemy. With the Marines in the back. The Immortals are grit against mech, but not that grit. So, you know, this is just going to be GG. And honestly, I'm a little disappointed. This is quarterfinal, and I was hoping for something a little bit more polished. I mean, yeah, fair play. Chaitin has successfully built a strong army here. He has got some upgrades. You know, but these Cloak Banshees, what are they doing in amongst an army? That's just weird. You know, why weren't they across the map earlier, doing damage to the economy, doing damage in the back of the mineral line? But my main gripe with this game is just idle buildings sitting about, huge amounts of money in the bank, while production facilities just sit idle. Now, looks, you know, maybe hoping here that this batch of Void Rays that's going to pop out is going to win the game for him. I mean, there's still Marines on the ground. Yeah, they're all pretty damaged. But his biggest problem here is, look, all of these Thors, there's as many Thors as there are Void Rays. So, I don't know. It takes some, and that certainly is not the handy Void Ray micro that is going to win you the game. It's just not going to happen. So, there is the GG, and Firesrest goes 1 game up. GG.